Remember that idiot from CNN? Oops, I shouldn't say that. I'm doing a debate for them. They'll be slightly tougher. No, I have fake Tapper is they said, I just want to debate this guy, but, and I'm going to demand a drug test too, by the way. I am. No, I really am.
Joe Biden needs to be tested for drugs before this debate because, let's face it, we see this guy every single day. We see that it's a weekend at Biden's situation every day of our lives for the last 3.5 years. And then he's got a really big, important appearance, like a State of the Union. And suddenly he shows up acting like he's, he's like Speedy Gonzalez flying around the room, trying to, who knows? Where did this guy come from? He's certainly not like that all the time. And it's got people scratching their heads. Here, I'll give you an example. His own spokesperson is sort of preparing the way, paving the road, because Biden's been hidden away, not allowed to see him for like a whole week before he gets to the debate, which nobody thinks is weird. It's like he's the president of the United States. He said, okay, I'll see you guys in a week. You're not going to see me. You're not going to hear from me. I'll have an intern tweet for me. But I've got to go to Camp David where there are no cameras, no cell phones. I'm going to be hidden away, and I'm going to be shot full of injections of God knows what. And everyone in the media is like, oh, well, that's all right. It's not like he's got an important job after all. Oh, no, wait, he's the president. So his spokesperson is on MSNBC this morning, and she made this remarkable prediction.
I'll tell you, you're going to see a very energized President Biden who is looking forward to having these direct conversations with Donald Trump on Thursday night in Atlanta.
Energized? Is that the word we're using? You're going to see a very energized Joe Biden. In other words, if he seems like he's hopped up on something, if he's shot full of caffeine or Red Bulls or Adderall or, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if the guy who has been sleepwalking through the last 3.5 years as the commander-in-chief is suddenly like, Flo Joe running down the 100-meter hurdles at the Olympics. That's a dated reference, but she's an American hero, rest her soul. So Donald Trump sees this. He takes to Truth Social and he's like, energized, Joe Biden, really energized? And then he posted this. Drug test for crooked Joe Biden? I would also immediately agree to one. And that is the point. You see, when one side of the equation is more than willing to open up a vein and say, yeah, go ahead, take my blood, take a pint of my blood. Just test a little bit of it, donate the rest to the Red Cross. I don't care. Sell it on eBay. It doesn't matter. I'm an open book. I'm completely transparent. I'm not on anything. Go ahead and test me. And the other side is, how dare you? How dare you suggest such a thing? Well, of course we won't submit to that. That's just psychological warfare. There's no reason why you should even be to even suggest that this person is on drugs. Well, of course we won't submit to a test, but how dare you even suggest such a thing? See, they're hiding something, and we know they're hiding something. You don't have to have a medical license to recognize that something's going on with Biden. Donald Trump earlier actually talked about the drug test and suggested exactly why Joe Biden should open a vein to prove to the American people that he's not wired on something.
Remember that idiot from CNN? Oops, I shouldn't say that. I'm doing a debate for them. They'll be slightly tougher. No, I have fake Tapper is they said, I just want to debate this guy, but, and I'm going to demand a drug test too, by the way. I am. No, I really am. I don't want him coming in like the State of the Union. He was high as a kite. I said, is that Joe up there? A beautiful robe? And by the end of the evening, he's like, well, it was exhausted, right? No, we're going to demand a drug test. But fake Tapper and these people, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fair. I think they're going to be fair. And if they're not, you have to deal with it, right? You have to deal with it.
You have to deal with it. The guy is just objectively funny, though. I mean, come on. What is this? Look it up. He's high as a kite. Is that Joe up there? But he's right. I mean, that doesn't happen by accident. It's not just circumstance. He can barely shuffle on and off a stage and barely put words together. He freezes. His brain freezes. His mouth freezes. He doesn't know where he is. No, and they're not cheap fakes. This is an obvious situation. And then suddenly he shows up and he's fine. Well, one person who knows about this, not just from a layman's perspective like you and me, but someone who has been there in the room with presidents of the United States. Now he's a congressman, Ronnie Jackson. So Congressman Ronnie Jackson, before he had this gig in the House of Representatives, he was the personal physician, not just to President Donald Trump, but also to President Barack Obama, and I believe in the final years of President George W. Bush's term. He's a retired admiral in the Navy and a doctor, and he was on Maria Bartiromo this weekend, and he just said it flat out. The president of the United States should undergo a drug test before this debate. The American people have the right to know.
I have sent 5 letters previously asking for President Biden to submit to a cognitive test, very similar to the one that President Trump got while he was president. And all 5 of those letters have gone completely ignored. So tomorrow I'm sending a letter to President Biden, to his physician, Dr. O'Connor, and I'm CCing his entire cabinet. And it's embarrassing that I have to do this, and it's really embarrassing as a former White House physician to have to do something like this, but we don't have any choice based on what's going on. But I'm going to be demanding on behalf of many millions of concerned Americans right now that he submit to a drug test before and after this debate, specifically looking for performance-enhancing drugs. Because we've seen recently in his State of the Union address that there was a Joe Biden that came out that was not similar at all to what we see on a day-to-day basis for the last 3.5 years. And there's just really no way to explain that other than he was on something, that they'd given him medications. I feel like this is probably what's going on over this week at Camp David. He's going to be at Camp David for a full week before the debate. Part of that is probably experimenting with, just getting the doses just right, because, they have to treat his cognition. They have to give him something to help him think straighter. They have to give him something to wake him up, for his alertness. And then, he's been agitated. We see that all the time, and that's a common symptom or sign of this cognitive disorder that he seems to be suffering from. And so they're probably going to give him something to take the edge off that as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is objectively, obviously true. And if you don't believe your own lying eyes, well, listen to Ronnie Jackson. Again, he's a medical doctor. He has treated presidents before. In fact, before he became a congressman, his biggest claim to fame was when the mainstream media, people like Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, the moderators of this week's debate, when they were calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, right? Because Donald Trump was clearly incapable of being president, because the Russian collusion thing didn't work, and the P-tape in Moscow bed with the prostitutes didn't work. The Russian dossier thing didn't work. The income tax report returns didn't work. They tried all these things to get rid of Donald Trump, overturn the election, reverse the will of the American people because they hate you so much. Those things didn't work. So then they resorted to, well, he's just mentally incapable of being president. We need to invoke the 25th Amendment. The cabinet, you remember all of that? And they said he's just cognitively incapable of Trump. They've never mentioned it with Biden. The corpse we see rolled out on a daily basis, drooling on camera and stammering and unable to remember people's names and literally locking up and freezing, has to be snapped out of it by Barack Obama or Dr. Jill, looking like he's doing a little squat and God knows what's going on in the Depends. No, that guy, they're fine. They never mentioned the 25th Amendment with him, but they were beating the drum every day, and they brought on doctors on television who never even examined President Trump to actually give a completely unqualified and uneducated diagnosis of the man by watching him on television. And they said, yeah, he's incapable. He should take a cognitive test. Well, my point is, when they were all saying that, what did Donald Trump do? He took a cognitive test. He actually did. And Ronnie Jackson, his personal physician, went out to the briefing room, delivered the results, and then answered any question that any person in the media had for like over an hour. Now, compare that to what we see right now. Not only do you not hear the media calling for a cognitive test against this man, who, by the way, if you didn't know this, has had 2 brain surgeries in his lifetime. Did you know that? Yeah, they don't talk about that much, do they? He's 81 years old. He's had 2 brain surgeries, and he's been through quite a bit in his lifetime. He's an old 81, okay? And just by appearances, he looks like he's missed not just a step, like a leap, right? But the media never asked for him to take a cognitive test. And you heard Ronnie Jackson there, Ronnie Jackson, the congressman and doctor, person who has actually examined and given a clean bill of health to various presidents, both Republicans and Democrats. You heard him mention Joe Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor. No relation. Now, let me play you a little bit of video of Dr. Kevin O'Connor when he did a full briefing to the media, answering every reporter's question from the White House press pool. Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That video doesn't exist because that's never happened. Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the doctor for the President Joe Biden, the oldest president in the history of the United States of America, and a man who has had 2 brain surgeries, Dr. Kevin O'Connor has never once submitted himself to the media to answer one single question about the health of this man. In fact, I don't even know what he looks like. He's never even appeared. He just issues an annual letter, a 1 or 2 paragraph letter saying, yeah, he's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. So that's why Ronnie Jackson says drug test Biden. If President Biden has to be medicated to make it through the debate, the voters deserve to know, and he has no business being president. We need transparency, and that ultimately is what's going on here. They're not afraid that you're going to find out that he's shot full of drugs to do the debate. What they're afraid of you knowing is that he's shot full of drugs to perform his job. I mean, how much more evidence do we need? Not only what we see every day in front of us, and then the roller coaster of energy, cognition, and ability to read a teleprompter that we see based on whether it's a really important big day like State of the Union, or whether it's just an every day where he gets lost on stage not knowing how to walk. And then, of course, you've got the report from the special counsel, Robert Hur, the U.S. attorney, who said, yes, Joe Biden broke the law with regard to mishandling of classified documents, but I'm not going to bring charges against him because the man can't even remember when his own child was born. And you've got all of that evidence and all of these people putting their names and reputations on the line to tell you the truth about Joe Biden. And yet we've never seen his doctor. He's never answered a question. He's never taken a cognitive test. And now we're supposed to believe that he's perfectly healthy, and whatever you see on the debate stage is completely natural without any performance-enhancing drugs. Congressman Andy Ogles actually joined his colleague Ronnie Jackson yesterday on Newsmax calling for the drug test.
Congressman Andy Ogles joins us now. Welcome to First Edition. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So your bill is so incredibly timely, especially ahead of the debate. I read one poll, actually by the Daily Mail. They said over 70% of Americans believe that both candidates actually should be tested. But specifically, we're talking about Joe Biden here. Do you think your bill will pass?
Well, to be determined, but, this is an important conversation that we have to have on behalf of the American people. We know the president is in cognitive decline. You see it on full display. There's periods where he's lucid and there's periods where he gets lost on a stage. I mean, goodness gracious. And so if he's taking mind-altering drugs, the American people have to know. And I've talked to physicians and I've talked to pharmacists that say that a lot of individuals that are on these type of cocktails also have a very strict and regimented sleep schedule. So my question is are there periods of time where he's induced sleep? Are there periods of time where we don't have a commander in chief? I want to know. I think you want to know, and the American people deserve to know.
Yeah. And of course we deserve to know. And one of the most important aspects of this, and Strawberry Blonde in our live chat at Rumble actually makes out a perfect and obvious statement here, which is if Trump were acting, everything I just laid out about Donald Trump, if he were president and all this was going on, it would be no question. He'd have to open a vein every morning when he woke up and got tested, right? It would be like he's at the Betty Ford Clinic or something, or he's playing on a Major League Baseball team. 100%, Strawberry Blonde, you're completely correct. And by the way, what Congressman Ogles said there is also incredibly important too, because whatever drugs that he's taking to make him do whatever he needs to do so that he can continue the Democrats' grasp on power in this country, so that they can continue to, tell you how to live your life. It's literally a mind-altering drug. And don't you think you deserve to know whether your president is on a mind-altering drug or not? Seems like a silly question to ask, and it's not a hypothetical, sadly. It's the reality that we're living in right now. Just like I think that the Trump team should demand a apology and equal time on CNN for their behavior yesterday with their spokesperson. I think they should also demand this. And then Trump said he was going to demand it. So what happened to that demand? Why not? I mean, listen, Biden has gotten every demand he asked for in this debate. Trump's asking one thing and one thing only, and he's willing to undergo it himself. Drug test. Take some blood, get a drug test. Let's see what happens. And of course, the Biden team will never do it. And why? Well, you know why.